Good evening, I'm Ed Lingao. The big story is tonight. The country's envoy to the U.S. says 2 vaccine manufacturers are ready to supply the country with as much as 25 million doses each. One of the developers, Moderna, is poised to be the second firm to be granted FDA approval in the U.S. The health department denies that there was any falling out in negotiations with Pfizer. The DOH says the country's confidentiality disclosure agreement with the vaccine maker never involved supply talks. The IATF may have required the use of face shields when in public, but the DOH warns against using it, especially for those with problems with eyesight and breathing. Signal number 1 is still raised in parts of Visayas and Mindanao as tropical depression Vicky maintains its strength. Vicky triggers floods and landslides in some areas in Mindanao. And as China welcomes the World Health Organization's probe into the origin of COVID-19, Wuhan, believed to be the pandemic's ground zero, gets a second lease in life. We begin tonight with a Philippine envoy sparking hopes of more sources of U.S.-made COVID-19 vaccines. This comes after a supposed mishandling in negotiations with Pfizer. The health department denies ever having supply talks with the manufacturer. Greg Gregorio with the big story.
Other sources of COVID-19 vaccines may be on its way to supply demand for 60 million Filipinos. This at least is according to Philippine Ambassador to the U.S. Babe Romualdez. Romualdez said in a statement that 2 American firms, Moderna and Arcturus Therapeutic Holdings, are ready to supply somewhere between 4 to 25 million doses of their shots to the Philippines. Moderna is poised to be the second vaccine to be granted U.S. approval for emergency use after receiving an endorsement from a U.S. FDA advisory panel. But as for the Philippines, the country still has no confidentiality disclosure agreement or CDA with either Moderna or Arcturus. The CDA is a document allowing clinical data sharing. This is the very document allegedly overlooked by Health Secretary Francisco Duque, leading to failed vaccine negotiations with Pfizer. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Locsin earlier said 10 million doses of Pfizer's vaccines could have been reached Philippine shores by January if someone had not dropped the ball. He was referring to Duque. The Health Department says CDAs go through the usual government process.
Nandyan po ang Department of Science and Technology, and together with us also, during the latter part was the Office of the Executive Secretary, because we wanted na talagang yung nakalagay sa CDA na yon ay ma-check talaga ng ating mga legal heads, no, or legal teams.
Health Undersecretary Vergara notes that while there had been meetings prior to the CDA signing in October, there were no specifics agreed upon, including supply, number of doses, and shipment.
Ang pinag-usapan lang talaga is mag-CDA tayo. Dahil sabi nila, any information na pag-usapan natin dito, you cannot disclose to anybody and to the public.
The W.H.O assures that the same process has been applied with other vaccine makers. The Department of Science and Technology adds that there are continuing discussions with 22 vaccine makers. The goal is to procure shots from 5 platforms with varying storage requirements and different age group trial participants. But will supply be enough?
Of all of these vaccines that are ready for 2021, it is not enough for the entire world population. So we have to prioritize. And to that effect, we need to make sure that we can get as many vaccines as we can from all the types of platforms.
Out of the candidates with pending talks with the country, Sinovac leads when it comes to the Philippines regulatory process. In an interview with Radyo 5, FDA Director General Eric Domingo says Sinovac may submit an application for emergency use authorization but only if requirements are met.
Nakita pa lang po natin yung phase 1 saka phase 2 data niya. Kaya kung darating po siya rito at mag-a-apply siya, kailangan po muna lumabas yung kanilang interim results ng phase 3 at yun nga po, kailangan ma-satisfy po niya lahat ng ating mga requirements for an EUA.
So far, Sinovac is pending application with the Food and Drug Administration for technical review to conduct late-stage trial in the country. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
The government wants to ramp up testing efforts with cases expected to surge during the holidays. Today alone, the Health Department recorded 2,122 new cases. This is the highest single-day increase and the first time the country recorded over 2,000 cases in nearly 3 weeks. In today's Laging Handa briefing, testing czar Vince Dizon says the country's testing capacity has improved with over 6.5 million Filipinos tested. He says the goal is to conduct at least 10 million tests by the first quarter, but that would require additional testing laboratories, especially in areas like Tagum, Borongan, and Sorsogon. Dizon says the government still has to increase its testing capacity, especially as during the holiday season.
Kailangan pa rin nating siguraduhin na nakabantay tayo lagi at lagi tayong handa. Dahil at any time pwedeng tumaas ito at ngayon nga dahil marami ng mga kababayan natin ang lumalabas, tumataas ng konti ang mga kaso. Kaya dapat tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang pagsunod sa mga health standards natin.
And speaking of that post-holiday surge in cases, one of the most active hospitals catering to COVID-19 patients in Quezon City is now preparing for the spike in infections. East Avenue Medical Center has handled more than 800 COVID-19 patients since March. While they have seen a decreasing trend in COVID-19 cases, the hospital's COVID facility remains on alert mode, especially for the holidays.
Right now, yung COVID positive cases namin ay mas mababa talaga compared dun sa mga unang mga buwan nung nag-umpisa yung COVID. At to my recollection, yung huling report sa akin, may mga 10 COVID confirmed cases kami ngayon that is being handled.
To improve their testing capacity, the hospital has inaugurated its own molecular laboratory. The lab's equipment were bought using a 2.5 million peso donation from the MVP group of companies. The lab will shorten the turnaround time for RT-PCR test results to just hours from the usual 2 to 3 days waiting time.
When he found out that there were not enough COVID wings and testing centers in the area in Quezon City, the MVP offered to donate equipment and also this testing lab.
The Land Transportation Office has started inspecting buses in terminals in preparation for Christmas. Passenger headcount, however, remains significantly lower than last year due to the threat of COVID-19. Gerard de la Peña is at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange to give us the updates. Gerard, it is the Friday before Christmas. Any rush at all in the terminals?
Ed, foot traffic here in PTEX is slowly picking up, with passenger volumes expected to reach pre-pandemic levels.
After enforcers found a crack on its windshield, this bus was not allowed to travel. Passengers were then asked to transfer.
Okay lang, sir. Okay lang.
With just a few days before Christmas, land transportation officers have started making rounds at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange. They want to make sure that buses are in good condition. Officials estimate that foot traffic at the PTEX in the past few days is at 60,000. They expect it to reach 70,000 as Christmas draws near.
Nakikita natin na talaga naman naglalabasa yung ating mga kababayan, no? Hindi lamang yung mga kababayan natin sa Metro Manila na gustong biyahe papunta sa mga karating na probinsya, pati na rin yung mga kababayan natin sa probinsya na gustong lumuwas ng Metro Manila at mamili, medyo magpasyal o makipagkita sa kanilang mga kamag-anak at kaibigan.
But it may not be the same story for air travel. NAIA departures are expected to pick up, but only a bit, due to restrictions imposed by various local government units.
Of course, alam mo lang, kultura natin to, lahat gustong to spend it with the family. No? The problem is, yun na nga, as ina-advise ng IATA, pagkat maaari, sakripisyo na natin itong holidays na ito for our own good.
Airport officials, however, expect a surge in the arrivals of overseas Filipino workers. From the average daily international arrivals of 5,000, it may reach 7,000 in the coming days. Yet it remains incomparable to last year's 37,000. More testing facilities were put up to accommodate more OFWs, but passengers are reminded that they should expect delays.
Pag nagkadikit-dikit ang mga flights at nag-increase ang mga flights, yung magsasabay-sabay pagdating. Kaya nga magkakaroon ng longer processing time at dito lalabas yung mga konting sakripisyo ng ating mga arriving passengers. May delay ng konti at ito naman yung pilit naming ginagawa ng paraan.
Ed, there's not much hustle and bustle here right now, but the situation is expected to change in the coming days. So authorities are reminding the public to always wear their face masks and face shield and always practice social distancing. Ed.
Thank you, Gerard de la Peña. We will go for a quick break. When the big story returns, Tropical Depression Vicky maintains its strength as it makes its way to Bohol. Signal number 1 is still raised in several parts of Visayas and Mindanao. And face shields might be required now, but the health department has a word of caution against its use. The details up next. Good evening, you're still watching The Big Story. With just a week to go until Christmas, customers would usually flock to supermarkets for last-minute holiday groceries. But with the pandemic this year, is this still the case? Shala Francisco is in Mandaluyong to tell us. Shala, how is the Noche Buena shopping going so far?
Ed, while we're seeing a lot of customers in the supermarket, this is not even half of the customers they had last year. And unlike before, Noche Buena items are not so quick to go out of stock, and even those purchasing Christmas Eve items are buying fewer products than usual. A week before Christmas, Alma has already finished buying fruit cocktails and other food items for her family's Noche Buena. She says it's better to do early shopping to avoid crowds as we are still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Kumpara nung last year, mas marami ba kayo pinamili ngayon?
Hindi, mas marami nun. Kasi ngayon wala namang pera din ng tao, di ba? Budget lang ba? Budget.
Even though more customers have been flocking to stores as the Christmas nears, supermarkets aren't as busy as last year.
Mas konti yung nagabili ng pang-Noche Buena kasi siguro sa ng tao. Depende sa kita rin nila, yung makayanan lang nila.
To attract more shoppers, some business establishments are still offering holiday promos up to now.
Yung iba, normally, pag December, wala nang promotion, no? Wala nang raffle or what. This year, nag-isip ng konting promotion ng mga tindahan just to lure people in.
The Trade Department, for its part, tells consumers not to worry about the prices of Christmas goods. Based on the agency's inspection today, some supermarkets are even selling below the suggested retail price or SRP.
Consumers natin will have the choice. Pwede silang maghanap ng mga malalaking supermarket na mas mababa ang presyo kaysa sa iba.
Meanwhile, the DTI warns consumers against buying Christmas lights from uncertified vendors. Castello says they should have Philippine Standard or PS Mark and Import Commodity Clearance or ICC sticker. This comes after officials confiscated more than 160 boxes of unlabeled Christmas lights from 2 stores.
Ibig sabihin, hindi siya na-test, hindi natin alam kung pasado sa standards, kung kumusta yung size ng cable, yung mechanisms niya, yung bombilya, hindi natin alam kung ito yung nasusunog.
According to the DTI, airing sellers and importers may face criminal charges, jail time, and fine of up to 300,000 pesos. The agency urges the public to finish shopping as early as now to avoid the surge of shoppers in the few days. And both supermarket owners and DTI are advising consumers with limited budget to go for Christmas bundles and promo packs, which can help them save 20 to 70 pesos. Ed?
Shaila Francisco of TV5. Quiapo Church is preparing for a different feast of the Black Nazarene next month. It is doing away with the traditional procession and is going instead for localized celebrations. And to tell us more, Marlene Alcade reports from Quiapo. She is also monitoring the ongoing services for Simbang Gabi. Marlene, how is the attendance so far?
And never mind the ongoing threat of COVID-19 or even the rain, Quiapo Church is still brimming with devotees who want to attend the hourly masses for Simbang Gabi. This might, in fact, just offer a preview of what to expect as the church still plans to celebrate the Feast of the Black Nazarene next month. Not even the pandemic can stop Black Nazarene devotees from attending masses in Quiapo. This morning, the line of Misa de Gallo attendees almost reached the streets of Quezon Boulevard. The police and church staff Hijos del Nazareno made sure that social distancing is observed. Police personnel also stopped churchgoers who brought children with them.
Nilalapitan ng ating mga kapulisan at sinasabi yung panganib na sa pagdadala ng mga bata.
Police say the public should expect a stricter implementation of health guidelines on the Feast of the Black Nazarene this January 9. The traditional traslasyon of the Black Nazarene may have been cancelled, but authorities still expect devotees to flock to Quiapo. Authorities plan control points that will serve as entry and exit points in Carriedo Avenida, Hidalgo Quezon Boulevard, Gonzalo Puyat Avenida, and other streets. In order for devotees to just stay in their localities, Quiapo church officials encourage churches from across the country to hold novena masses for the Feast of the Black Nazarene.
Maintindihan naman po ng Nazareno kung hindi kayo makakapunta dito sa Quiapo sa January 9. Pero napakaraming oras at araw po pagkatapos ng January 9 para magbigay-pugay po kayo at gawin yung inyong panata na makabalik sa dambana ng Poong Jesus Nazareno. Mahirap lang po na magsabay-sabay tayo sa January 9. Yun po yung aming pakiusap. No? Hindi man po makalabas ang Nazareno ng Quiapo, pero mas mararamdaman po ng mga tao ang presensya ng Nazareno sa pamamagitan po ng localized celebration ng traslasyon.
The image of the Black Nazarene is set to visit other localities.
Magpadala na lamang ng kanilang pangalan, isasama ho sila sa panalangin ng pang-araw-araw ng simbahan ng Quiapo. Kung yun lang ho naman ang gusto nila na sila maisama sa panalangin. Kasi hindi pwede. Mga senior citizen, hindi ba bawal? Kung naka-wheelchair yan, paano papayagan sa control points?
This December 27, devotees can look at the Visario image of the Black Nazarene or the Bagong Bayan image in front of the church. However, they cannot go near it. Quiapo officials are also planning to set up a prayer station in strategic areas. A big screen monitor will be put so devotees can see what's happening inside the church. Devotees may also tune in to TV Maria, Facebook Live, and YouTube, where masses in Basilica Minore will be shown. And there are still a lot of people here in Quiapo attending Mass for Simbang Gabi. Authorities are making sure that social distancing and other health protocols are being implemented. There's also a 15 to 30-minute interval after each Mass for disinfection. Ed?
That was Marlene Alcade of TV5. Tropical Depression Vicky maintains its strength as it crosses Moncayo in Davao de Oro. In its 5 p.m. bulletin, Pagasa says Vicky is moving west-northwest. It will emerge over the Bohol Sea early Saturday morning and pass close to Siquijor or Misamis Occidental. Pagasa expects Vicky to make another landfall in southern Negros. It is forecast to remain a tropical depression while crossing the Philippine archipelago. In Luzon, Tropical Cyclone Signal number 1 has been raised only in northern and central Palawan. Signal number 1 has also been raised in Leyte, Cebu, Bohol, Siquijor, Negros, Guimaras, and Iloilo. as well as the Dinagat Islands, Surigao, Agusan, Davao, Camiguin, Bukidnon, Misamis, Lanao, Maguindanao, Cotabato, and Zamboanga. Vicky triggered flooding in some parts of Mindanao. Continuous rain since last night also brought landslides in Davao de Oro. Residents from Surigao del Sur and Agusan del Sur were forced to evacuate after floodwaters entered their houses. And these are the other big stories today. 2 of the 7 people arrested on Human Rights Day are seeking release orders from the Supreme Court. The National Union of People's Lawyers assisted the camps of suspects Denise Velasco and Joel Demante in filing separate petitions for the issuance of habeas corpus. The pleas were based on circumstances that led to the arrests of the activists. The petitioners urged the Supreme Court to look into their case as they claim to be supposedly targeted by search warrants implemented by authorities. The U.S. military vows to be more assertive in responding to international law violations, citing Beijing's expansion activities in the South China Sea. In a document, the U.S. Pentagon described China as the most pressing long-term strategic threat to the existing world order. The document says the U.S. Navy will be more visible in the Pacific. It will detect and document rivals' actions that violate international law, steal resources, and infringe upon the sovereignty of other nations. The Interagency Task Force has issued a new resolution instructing government agencies to provide a consolidated advisory to the public regarding the proper use of face shields in public. The Health Department on Friday already cautioned against the use of face shields for people who have difficulty in breathing. They also do not recommend its use, especially if it interferes with the wearer's eyesight during work. We will pause for a quick break. More of the biggest stories when we come back. But before that, catch our 2020 year-end special, 1 Year in 1 Hour, premiering Sunday, December 20, 7:30 p.m. Let's watch this.
One News recaps the stories that made headlines and defined the nation this 2020.
The president was really not inclined to ban Chinese tourists.
In the light of NCOV, is it xenophobia or self-preservation?
The second most active volcano in the Philippines acted up again.
Issues that found their way into our newscasts and programs in the past 365 days.
Here are the big stories to watch out for. The Bayanihan 2 bill, which is touted as
the economy slips into a technical recession.
dumping of artificial white sand.
1 year, 1 news. The Philippine Star, Business World, and News 5 under 1 News.
The heavy rains dumped by Typhoon Ulysses left a trail of destruction in several areas.
2-week suspension in the repatriation.
Look back on the events that will impact the new year that is about to come.
It's a winner-take-all system in the electoral votes of the United States.
Are you going to introduce changes, for example, in our immigration policy?
The threat of COVID-19 now echoes louder in the country's halls of power.
Don't miss 1 year, 1 news. It all happens here on Signal TV channels 8 and 250.
Good evening, you're still watching The Big Story. The management of NLEX is facing more government pressure to implement the barriers up solution in all their tollways. Valenzuela City reports easing traffic congestion in their tollways after enforcing the new scheme. But can it work for other toll plazas? Man Enriquez tells us in this report.
It took more than 10 seconds before this barrier at the SLEX Mamplasan exit went up, allowing the passage of this vehicle. If Senator Win Gatchalian had it his way, he would want all barriers be kept up, especially in all NLEX tollways. Valenzuela City's pilot implementation of the boomless or no barriers toll plazas eased traffic congestion. The senator's brother, Valenzuela Mayor Rex Gatchalian, made the claim. He posted photos showing the progress in what he called the new normal for commuters in the Valenzuela Toll Plaza. While the measure seems to be working well for Valenzuela, NLEX toll operator Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation says the boomless system may not be applicable for all their toll gates.
Kailangan din pong maglagay ng tamang infrastructure, kailangan maglagay ng tamang technology. At meron din po sa regulatory framework kasi pag tinanggal po natin yung barrier, yung violation system improvement natin, ay yung violation system natin, naglilipat po siya sa mula sa sistema na ang primary violation control mo yung barrier. Ngayon ang magiging violation control mo, hahabulin mo yung motorista kung may mga violation, no? Halimbawa, mayroong hindi sumunod sa batas ng trapiko o kaya kahit hindi nagbayad ng toll. No?
But Senator Gatchalian insists the solution is feasible, citing the use of technology in other countries. For some motorists, removing booms in toll gates means faster travel time.
Para dire-diretso na rin. Kasi minsan hindi siya umaangat di ba? Pagka hindi na babasa yung RFID.
Yung sinusundan namin, hindi gumana yung RFID, bibigay pa yung card niya para makalusot lang. Pero pagkakataon nangyayari yun.
In an interview with One News, the chiefs, MPTC Senior Vice President for Communication and Stakeholder Management Romulo Kimbo said toll gates and barriers serve as a road safety feature.
It's the first interface between the toll operator and the vehicle and the customer who is entering a high-speed expressway. You are able to identify non-roadworthy vehicles, dilapidated cars with broken headlights.
While Valenzuela Toll Plaza is lifting its barriers from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., the NLEX management is already cooking up a plan to sanction those who will pass through boomless RFID lanes even without the sticker.
Mayor Gatchalian and our team agreed to develop a protocol. We will have to obviously install more cameras, we have to install more tracking devices, and then obviously maybe apprehend in the near future with a hefty fine.
Amid the pressures, the MPTC management has vowed to study how they will be able to implement the boomless system in all their tollways. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
Some 300 members of the Dumagat tribe in Antipolo, Rizal, who are still reeling from Typhoon Ulysses, received an early Christmas present. The MVP group of companies donated sacks of rice, face masks, and face shields to the residents. The sacks of rice from Smart Communications were bought from a group of farmers in Pangasinan who also received a 10,000 or 100,000 peso sustainability fund for the next cropping season. This is part of the Tuloy Pa Rin ang Pasko movement. More areas are expected to be served this holiday season. Meanwhile, PLDT Chairman, President, and CEO Manny Pangilinan has donated $1 million to his alma mater, the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Pangilinan's donation will establish the Manny V. Pangilinan MBA Fellowship Fund and will support the Tangen Hall Mechatronics Laboratory. The Fellowship Fund provides financial support to Wharton MBA graduate students. Filipino students will be prioritized in the grant, followed by those from Asian or ASEAN countries and other international countries. And now, time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Paulo Del Rosario. Thanks, Ed. Now, after a strong showing in the previous window of the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers, head coach W.H.O says Gilas Pilipinas will begin their bubble training after the holidays.
Well, first, we'll start early for next year. For window 3, we'll start really early. I think we're coming in sometime early January, so that we can get together for a longer period of time that gives the system to mature, the players to mature in terms of the system, get everything on track.
Looking further ahead, Coach Jong and Coach Tab Baldwin talked about their preparations for the third and last window of the qualifiers.
I think an advantage that we have also is we know Coach Raiko's system. We've played Coach Raiko in the Southeast Asian Games in 2019. And we've seen him play in Bahrain, so I think that will be an advantage for us.
And I think when you have that combination, you're allowed to compensate for what you might not have had in experience or talent at that point in time. And of course, the games went well for us. We were very successful and thrilled with the outcome. So it's a good launching board to move forward into the next window, which we are very excited to host here.
The third window of the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers will begin on the 15th of February, 2021. That's it for the latest in the world of sports. Catch us again later at 9:30 p.m. here on One News and One Sports Plus. My name is Paulo Del Rosario, and this has been The Game. Back to you, Ed.
Thank you, Paulo. The city of Wuhan in China is back to living the life after months of stringent lockdowns as the epicenter of COVID-19. From being a ghost town early this year, Wuhan City's nightlife is now vibrant and beaming with maskless partygoers sprawled back on the streets. The city has not reported any new locally transmitted case since early May. The World Health Organization, meanwhile, wants to investigate the origins of the coronavirus. Beijing says it welcomes the WHO-led inquiry. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again on Monday at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News, for more in-depth analysis. Visit our webpage, onenews.ph. 7 days to go before Christmas. Tuloy pa rin po ang Pasko, mga kapatid. I'm Ed Ligao. We are One News. Good evening and happy weekend.
Tayo'y maging liwanag ng Pasko.